So the sooner it's put out of its misery, the better. And that I think is what needs to happen.
Wow.
I would actually dissolve the corporate entity of the party, and I would start again with a new brand, a new leader, and a new everything. Yeah.
Well, let's now hear from a former Conservative MP who lost his seat in this election and has now quit the party, saying it's dead. Marcus Fysh was defeated in Yeovil by the Liberal Democrats, and he joins us now. Good morning, Marcus.
Good morning. Hi.
What makes you say that the party is dead?
I just don't think it's a viable entity anymore. I think it's with the current composition or the new composition of the party in Parliament, I don't think there is any chance that it will do the things that are required to actually be electable again. So whether it's making the most of actually being outside the EU, I don't think the current crop of MPs will ever want to do that. And I don't think it's possible for a centre-right party that doesn't want to do that ever to be elected in the UK again. So I just think everyone's wasting their time with it, and I'm just calling it how I see it, really. If it was my business, I would wind it up. Yeah, I honestly don't think it's viable. I don't think it's I just don't think it works anymore. I don't think there's political space for where the current crop of MPs want to be, which is on the centre-left SDP side of politics, the old SDP. They are centre-left politicians, and that's where Labour is.
So you're suggesting a move to the right is what the Conservative Party needs?
No, I'm saying that it needs to occupy that space, which is the centre-right and the centre, in a sensible way that is going to resonate with the population and speak human to them and be human about it. And that's not what reform is. And I don't think that that is capable of doing that. But I don't think the current Conservative MPs want to be there. That isn't who they are. So it isn't a Conservative party in that sense. And so it should no longer exist.
So you won't be joining Reform UK?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
No.
What key core message then was missing for you, Marcus, in this election campaign? What were voters not hearing from the Conservatives as far as you're concerned?
Well, I think we need to look at the result and realise that most of our voters from 2019 either stayed at home or voted for reform. They, I think, rightly recognise that it's not a party that will actually do what they need it to do. It won't actually pursue Conservative policies of lower taxes and incentivizing business and growing the economy the way that it should. And it won't make the most of being outside of the EU. It isn't that sort of party. It is run by the sort of Remainers and Wets and the sort of Theresa May faction there is overwhelmingly large, and that's never going to do that job which the people of the UK require it to do. And so I just don't think it's viable anymore.
Wow.
So there's no point being involved in it.
And can I just confirm, so you posted on X last night, I hereby resign from the Conservatives. Have you literally handed in a resignation? Have you withdrawn your membership, all that sort of stuff?
I haven't formally done that yet, but I will be doing that today, yeah. But
Wow.
that isn't really of that much of a consequence to anything, but it is... I just think I need to call it how I see it, and I think it's a real problem for colleagues who are still in Parliament. What they actually do is very tricky now, and I think they need to think very long and hard, unless they are willing to actually be a Conservative party and realise that the Rishi Sunak approach wasn't the right one, and admit that it wasn't the right one. Then I don't see a future for it at all.
So you're also saying there, Marcus, that when you look around at the, 121 Conservative MPs who have been returned after this election, that you do not see a viable leader of this Conservative Party among them either, despite the names with which we're all familiar as potential candidates, whether they are Kemi Badenoch or Suella Braverman or Priti Patel or Tom Tugendhat, these sorts of people. None of these people, as far as you're concerned, can lead the Conservative Party to where you think it should be.
No, I don't think so. I don't think they would. I don't think. I don't think. I think only one of them would, in fact, be elected by the MPs. While he's a good guy, I don't think he would put the party in that position that it needs to be in to win, because his MPs simply wouldn't back him to do that.
What has caused this? Where has this gone wrong? Is it under the leadership of a specific person? Is it self-interest? What would you identify as the root causes of the problems you're identifying?
Well, I think that's an interesting question. For me, I would have liked to see David Cameron stay on as Prime Minister and pursue proper independence from the EU. He sort of didn't do that, and that was the root cause of the problem, which is why we ended up with Theresa May, who didn't know what to do with it, and frankly just took the advice of Ollie Robbins, who it sounds is now is now going to be back in charge any minute. So that was the fatal flaw. The fatal flaw was not making a proper job of that, and so we wasted so much energy and expended so much energy arguing about that for years. And frankly, Rishi Sunak has just been a return to that approach, and that's why it's been a disaster. And the MPs, I'm afraid, who put him there are to blame as well, because they wouldn't have any other approach, and they will now not have any other approach, and that's going to make it totally unelectable forever. So I think it's only until that entity gets replaced by something that is more credible and is going to actually be voted in by a unified centre right of the country, that is the only thing that can happen now. So the sooner it's put out of its misery, the better. And that I think is what needs to happen. Wow. I would actually dissolve the corporate entity of the party, and I would start again with a new brand, a new leader, and a new everything. Yeah.
May I put this text to you, Mr. Fysh, and we're very grateful for you speaking to us this morning, because I can hear the kind of frustration and I suppose the exhaustion actually in your voice. Craig, who's listening to you, texts to say, just because Marcus Fysh can't play, he wants the house burnt down. He's being petulant.
No, not at all. No. This is just about facing reality. The one thing that you need to do in life is understand what is actually happening around you. And that is my very sober assessment of it, that it just isn't a viable entity anymore, because it doesn't want to occupy the space that is electable in the centre right. That is the reality of having left the EU, is that we have to make the most of being outside of the EU, which means using the powers, using the independence. And the majority of those Tory MPs don't want to do that. They just simply don't. And so that's why it isn't ever going to get itself into that position.
Just finally, I must ask about your exchange with Nicholas Soames, something of a Conservative grandee, I think it's fair to say. On Twitter, this is, in response to your message saying, it's dead, move on, let's do something else. Nicholas Soames said, I really don't think anyone will notice, the total idiot, in reference to you, to which you replied, mate, you are a total weapon.
Well, yeah, I mean, I rest my case. He's someone who's traded on his grandfather's name his whole life, has nothing else to say for himself. So I rest my case.
Marcus Fysh, thank you very much. Thank you for your time this morning. We appreciate it. Marcus Fysh, who was Conservative MP for Yeovil, the Lib Dems won that seat. It is worth reflecting. Their MP for Yeovil is Adam Dance, with a majority of 12,268.